welcome back to Benny's Custom Works. Today we're back in the shop with Gian's 180. You guys haven't seen this for a while. Mainly that's been because it's actually been unregistered. So we're going to go through it today and work out a bit of a game plan. We're not going to do anything too gnarly today. We're going to go right through it, probably give it a minor service and get a bit of a list together on what to do to get it back on the road. There's definitely some stuff that are going to cause issues for roadworthy inspection. So we'll go right through it, make a bit of a list. I'm sure there'll be plenty of chats about what we can and can't do in Australia and New South Wales specifically, so stay tuned for all the fun. It's not in bad condition overall, but it does have a few little oil leaks here and there. Interestingly enough though, New South Wales, one of the registration inspection policies, if it doesn't actually drip oil during the inspection, it's not a fail. And speaking to Gian off camera, this doesn't really drip a lot of oil at all. Like it might take 3 months to get a teaspoon spot on the ground. So I think the best course of action for us is going to be probably to take it up to the car wash, give it a mad pressure wash, and then look to see where the leak is coming from. That's a good practice anyway, is to give it a good wash, and then you can keep track of any weirdness that's happening. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably going to be the rocker cover gasket, because the oil leak goes all the way to the top of the motor. Like you can see scum and like oil leaks attract dust, and it's all the way at the top of the engine's the same. So we do have a second rocker cover there that we're going to get powder coated, and then we'll refit it back onto the car. So part and parcel of that, it will be changing the rocker cover gasket and all the bolt seals. So that'll pretty much take care of that leak. As I mentioned, I will wash it down. Unfortunately, where we are, we don't have a facility to wash the car or any oil related stuff, so we have to take that to a separate wash bay to do it. So we probably won't bother filming that because the car wash, they have to do it for you, so it's not like a 2-minute job. So we'll have to arrange a day to do that. But the biggest issue for me is going to be this screamer. So we'll have to plumb that back, which Gian's a bit sad about, but on the same token, we don't want to have hassles. And also looking up, we've got heat shielding stuff that probably needs to be taken care of. We've got a nut missing off the dump pipe, so there's plenty of little stuff that we can get onto. I might even have a look at tackling the turbo heat shield today, or at least starting on it. It's also missing the bracket from the dump pipe to the gearbox crossmember, very similar to the Chima. And this is all hard mounted as well. It's an aftermarket front pipe, so someone's removed the factory flex. I think I'll probably make a similar bracket to what's on the Chima. Just same thing, weld it to the dump and then make a little tab and then bolt a bracket on. We'll all do that at the same time when we plumb this screamer back in, so we can just do one lot of welding and call it done. We're pretty lucky in that this screamer is on a V-band, so it's nice and easy to get to, so we can just shoot that. We'll merge it into the factory 3-inch. Does have a cat, so we're all good there. Sounds like there's still some material in that one, so pretty good. It's dated January 2008, so that was probably installed when the car was complied in Australia. Part of the compliance with older Japanese cars is to change the catalytic converter for a new one. I don't really understand the policy on why that is, because the factory Nissan ones are probably a lot better than these aftermarket ones anyway. But whoever's written the rules, that's part of the deal, so whatever. Looking further back, everything looks pretty good. Wheels and tyres are good. All the suspension's in pretty good nick. We do have an exhaust hanger that's off here. We'll probably tend to that today as well. It's got a bit of cable tie and hose clamp action, which probably worked well at the time, but we'll do those few things for the rego, and then we're going to get into the mods. So we've got a stack of Defi gauges that we've been sitting on for quite a while to go into this. We're not sure exactly how we're going to mount it into the car yet. We don't really want to go cutting the dash. The dash has had screws and stuff put in it before, so Gian's got a dash mat. Finding a really good black 180 dash that's not cracked or damaged is like basically unobtainium, so I would love to get a proper one later, but for now the dash mat will hide 90% of the sins. Also want to put a couple of gauges up the A-pillar, but we're going to put them quite low to that so that they're compliant with registration and stuff. Basically the theory behind the gauges up the pillar being an issue is you can hit your head on them in a large accident, so we're going to put them as far down the bottom of the A-pillar as possible to keep them out of that sort of head impact area. But apart from that, the car looks pretty good. Gian loves this thing, so it has been pretty well maintained. we'll do a bit of an oil change on it today and fix up some of these hangers. That hanger's not too good either, so we might change that one out. Put a reliable Subaru one in there instead of a crusty killed Nissan one. Lol. In before hate comments. But yeah, everything else looks pretty good, fairly minor. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to tackle this exhaust today because we don't have any flex joints or any, I'd say that's probably going to be 38 mil or something close to that. So we'll have to order some small bends and a flex joint because they may move or expand independently of each other because the dump pipe's got consistent heat, whereas the screamer pipe is only open when it's on boost. So yeah, want to definitely fix that up. And also looks like there's some weirdness going on with the vacuum lines too. There's actually no, from what I can see, there's no vacuum reference at all to that gate. I found why. So the hose is rotten off and fallen off the gate, so it's probably infinity boosts at the moment, which is not ideal. So we'll have to fix that today too. But plenty to do. Oh, that's my head. So we'll get into it. We'll change this clutch line sooner or later too. We'll do a bit of a how-to on deleting the weird loop that's for bleeding, which doesn't really work very well in my opinion. Plenty to do, plenty of love required. It's been a cool car, but it definitely needs a bit of love. Front bar's a bit floppy, so we'll make some brackets. The guard's cracked, which is actually as a result of the loose front bar. Basically fatigues both the guards and they break. It's pretty common on 180s after you've fitted a front mount, because this bar obviously originally bolts to the full Rio. The Rio is still in here, but it has been trimmed, so a lot of the mounting tabs are gone. So we'll look at making some mounting tabs for the front bar as well to just try and lock it in. I think we'll probably use some stainless round bar for that as well because it's super rigid. Just pick up some points on the bar and go back to existing mounting points on the chassis. There's bar tabs already on the chassis on the outside left, but yeah, we'll run it back on the front as well to put some of the rigidity back into that bar. Yes, it stayed on the roof. I know I've banged on about it before, but changing some plug washers is something to do. This one's obviously done quite a few services. You should change these every service. So if you buy them separately, they're pretty pricey, but buying these kits are only about 12 bucks. So it gives you heaps of different sizes. So it's pretty efficient because then you get all your little turbo washers and anything up to real big water lines. And this will do 95% of cars. Some cars do have a reusable sump plug with a rubber O-ring, like all Falcons pretty much from at least AU on have a rubber face that's reusable, but you can buy those sump plugs separately if it's damaged as well. This one's been used so many times it's actually deformed around the sump plug, so it's going to be a bit of fun trying to get this one off. But you basically just keep chopping at it with side cutters until it comes off, and then swap out your brand new copper one. This one was an aluminium washer, but the material really doesn't matter in my opinion as long as it's soft enough to crush up and seal. So got a new one on there. The outer diameter is a little bit smaller, but it's not going to matter. There's a fair chance that one's actually expanded from being tightened so many times. So we'll whack that on, then we'll bring it down and do our oil and filter. One thing that's worth mentioning on S-chassis cars in general is the oil filter is really close to the back of the alternator. And depending on who's been in the car before, sometimes the rubber boot covering the positive terminal can be exposed. So be super careful when you're removing your oil filter that you don't short it out. Because if you do short the oil filter removal tool on your your alternator stud, it's probably going to blow the main fuse. And if you do that, your car's going nowhere, and you can guarantee when you do it, it's going to be like 5 o'clock on a Sunday arvo, and you've got to go to work at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it's not going to be available. So yeah, be super mindful of that because once you hit it, there's no going back. Because we know this hose has been previously heat affected, we're going to put some fire sleeve on it. This is the silicon type fire sleeve, and it's got like a woven fiberglass internal on it. So it's pretty good heat protection. So just gonna whack a good, I don't know, foot or 300 mil, give or take, on that boost hose. Just slip it on. Then we'll run this boost hose up to the top into the bay, to the boost control solenoid, so we can get our length correct. It's easier to run it from the gate back up to the solenoid in this particular setup, rather than trying to run it from the top back down. So we're going to whack this on, but before we do that, we're also going to put a cable tie on the wastegate so that it doesn't blow off. Not that it should, because it's mega tight, but it's always good practice to cable tie your vac lines if you're not using the AN style. Ba-ting. One thing that is worth mentioning though is the path of your vac line. Just be super careful that it's run straight and there's no kinks. We've actually left a fair bit of line longer than you probably need to, but if you do it that way, it's all nice gentle curves and there's no chance of kinking that hose. Because if you do kink that hose, there's a fair chance the engine's going to overboost pretty badly. And depending on your setup, specifically if you are running a factory ECU with an aftermarket boost control, there may not be a boost cut, or it may have been overridden to get the boost level that you want. While we wouldn't recommend that setup, I know there's a lot of stuff out there like that, so be very mindful when you're running your vac lines not to kink them or cut them either, because if they're cut, you're going to get the same issue. So if it's not sending boost to where it should be, or if there's no reference to the wastegate, yeah, it's going to overboost, or yeah, it's just not going to function correctly. So make sure that when you do run your vac lines that they're not kinked and can't be cut. Definitely past the use by date. You can see the tip of the electrode, they've burnt, like the edges are burnt right off it. Oh, it runs. Well, that's a wrap for us today. We've had a pretty productive day on the old 180SX. Well, it hasn't been super exciting for you guys, most likely. It's sometimes you just got to grind through the more boring stuff to get to the fun stuff at the end of it. So we've got a bit of a list on what to fix this up to get it registered again. Done an oil change, done some plugs. The plugs are way overdue looking at the old plugs that have come out of it. So it'll probably run better just with changing the plugs. We've ordered our materials so that we can plumb the screamer back in. We'll also fix those exhaust brackets further down when we're doing the welding for the screamer pipe. Being that we're doing so much exhaust work down the road, we haven't actually bothered to change the hangers as yet. We'll do all that exhaust stuff in one episode, so that'll get it done. We're going to change the rocker cover, but first we're going to send that away for powder coating, so that gives it a nice fresh look. And we're also going to start tidying up the bay, rerouting some hoses, removing some of the old wiring that probably doesn't need to be there. And yeah, we're definitely on the road to getting this thing back to a fun, drivable street car rather than the semi-track car that it's previously been. So yeah, stay tuned. There's going to be plenty more 180 action in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.